There is a word so small, so simple, that it can liberate your life or imprison it. A word that, when used with intention, can protect your time, your peace, your energy, and your soul. That word is no. The Stoics lived by restraint, not repression. They believed that power lies not in how much you can gather, but in how much you can walk away from. They taught that inner freedom depends on your ability to reject what does not align with your values. Seneca said, "If a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable." But what he left unspoken was this: knowing your port means knowing what not to chase. Today, we live in a culture that worships the word yes. Say yes to every opportunity, every social event, every ask from others, because saying no is considered rude, selfish, lazy, ungrateful. But in trying to be everything to everyone, you lose yourself, you burn out, you forget what your own voice sounds like. This is not a video about building walls. It is about building wisdom. It's not about avoidance, but alignment. To the Stoic, no is not resistance. It is redirection. It is how we return to the path of virtue when distraction pulls us away. In the chapters ahead, we will explore how saying no can become your most sacred discipline. You will learn how to say it to temptation, to overcommitment, to flattery, to fear, and to your own self-sabotage. Each chapter will equip you not just with principles, but with a mindset, a way to view your life through the lens of clarity and courage. The word no might feel like rejection, but the Stoic sees it as protection. And in this modern world, your peace, your mind, and your mission are worth protecting. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Say no to distraction. Every moment you're alive, something is pulling on your attention. Your phone lights up with a notification. Your inbox grows. Your to-do list mutates into something monstrous. Your energy gets devoured by small, invisible thieves, little pulls and pings that seem harmless alone, but consume you over time. The Stoics understood the cost of scattered attention. They knew that a divided mind cannot create, cannot reflect, cannot lead. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You must reclaim the ability to focus, for without it, you will be pulled in every direction and accomplish nothing truly worthwhile." To say no to distraction is to say yes to direction. It is to honor your time as sacred rather than surrender it to the noise of the world. In today's hyper-connected world, distraction disguises itself as obligation and urgency. Emails scream, timelines scroll infinitely, conversations erupt from every corner of our digital lives. But just because something is loud doesn't mean it's worthy. Most of what asks for your attention is noise. Few things actually deserve your presence. The Stoic filters his focus with the rigor of a gatekeeper. He does not chase every fire. He chooses his flame and tends it well. Imagine your mind as a sacred space, a quiet temple of thought and intention. It is not merely a container of ideas, but a sanctuary where your inner wisdom resides. Every time you entertain a distraction, you invite a stranger to sit down, rearrange your furniture, trample your sacred carpets, and speak over the soft voice of your conscience. Clarity is not lost through chaos. It is lost through permission. You lose clarity not because your mind is broken, but because you've given it no space to breathe, no silence to stretch out, no emptiness in which it can hear its own truth. The Stoic locks that door, not from fear, but from freedom. He stands as the gatekeeper of his own temple, refusing to let every external noise echo within his most private space. He knows that his attention is the most valuable currency he possesses, and so he spends it wisely. He protects his mental peace with fierce intention, understanding that the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life, and the quality of your life determines the peace within your soul. Saying no to distraction is not about rejecting the world. It is about refining how you interact with it. It's not about building a bunker. It's about building boundaries that preserve your focus and your flow. It's about discerning what deserves your gaze and what can pass by without stealing your time. This takes discipline, not just once, but every day, like a warrior sharpening his sword before each battle. It takes clarity, not just about what to focus on, but why it matters and what the cost will be if you don't. And it takes courage. The courage to be unavailable, to be misunderstood, to be perceived as aloof in a culture addicted to instant replies and perpetual connection. The Stoic does not chase relevance, he chases mastery. He trains himself to delay, to delete, to disconnect. He practices saying no, not to push the world away, but to pull his deeper self closer. In that sacred silence, in that uncluttered space, he finds power. He lives not louder, but deeper, not faster, but truer, not to impress, but to align. For 1 hour each morning, disconnect completely. No phone, no alerts, just presence. Use this time for reflection, journaling, or focused work. You are training your attention to serve you, not the world. Chapter 2. Say no to temptation. Temptation is the illusion of pleasure wrapped in a cloak of urgency. It promises relief, not freedom. The Stoics taught that what feels good now often leads to bondage later. Seneca said, "A man who has given in to pleasure cannot resist pain." To say no to temptation is not to reject enjoyment, it is to reject enslavement. The Stoic does not believe in denying all pleasure, but he filters pleasure through the lens of virtue. He asks, does this serve my highest self? Does this make me stronger or weaker? Will this choice elevate my spirit, or will it diminish it for the sake of a fleeting sensation? The Stoic believes that the pursuit of pleasure is not inherently wrong, but when it becomes your master, it becomes your prison. He knows that the sweetest indulgences can be the most deceptive because they whisper comfort while planting seeds of dependence. These indulgences appear harmless at first, just one more bite, one more drink, one more lazy afternoon. But each small surrender adds weight to the chains we wear. Each minor compromise, when stacked upon the next, builds a structure of captivity so subtle you don't even notice until it's fully constructed. He sees clearly that the more often you say yes to every craving, the harder it becomes to say no when it truly matters. And in those critical moments, your strength is revealed, not by your will in the moment, but by the habits you've trained in the silence beforehand. In every human life, there is a fork in the road. One path leads to discipline, the other to indulgence. One is steep, filled with discomfort and delay, but it elevates you with every difficult step. It's the path of resistance, the road of refinement, the trail that forges strength not by chance, but by challenge. The other is smooth and easy, paved with instant gratification, but it slowly erodes your strength while comforting you with softness. The Stoic chooses the difficult path, not because he is a glutton for suffering, but because he understands what it produces. Strength, clarity, character, resilience, not just success in the external world, but mastery in the internal one. He does not seek hardship for its own sake, but he knows that through hardship, he sharpens the sword of the soul. Every yes to temptation is a no to growth. Every indulgence is a missed opportunity to fortify the soul, and each time you resist, you reassert control, reclaim your will, and remind yourself of who you truly are. You remember that you are not just an animal chasing pleasure, but a thinking, reasoning being capable of choosing the higher way. Every choice is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. He chooses the discomfort of restraint over the regret of indulgence again and again, until restraint becomes peace, and peace becomes power. This is not deprivation, it is elevation. Temptation doesn't always look like vice. Sometimes it looks like comfort, like a warm bed when you know you should rise early. It looks like putting off your responsibilities just a little longer. It looks like gossip, indulgence in anger, drama, or the unspoken hunger to belong. It arrives in friendly disguise, rarely shouting its name. Sometimes it even comes wearing the mask of self-care. Take it easy today, it says. You've earned it. But the Stoic has learned that temptation often speaks in justifications. It rationalizes ease while stealing excellence. Temptation always offers a shortcut, a way around the challenge rather than through it. But the Stoic understands there are no shortcuts to the places worth going. The long path refines the soul. The short path only delays the inevitable reckoning. Whether it's food, gossip, laziness, anger, lust, or even pride, temptation whispers promises it cannot keep. It says, "This one time won't matter," or "You deserve this." It appeals to your feelings, but ignores your future. And so, the Stoic trains himself to listen not to the loudest voice, but to the wisest one. He learns to override his urges in service of something greater: character, purpose, and self-respect. His discipline is not a punishment, it is a commitment to live aligned, to act with integrity, and to embody the highest version of himself. Every time he says no to the lesser impulse, he says yes to the higher ideal. The Stoic does not trade long-term peace for short-term comfort. He holds the line, not just when others are watching, but especially when no one is, because integrity is forged in solitude. True discipline is practiced in the quiet decisions, in the unseen moments when no applause is offered and no judgment is feared. It is in the space where no one will give you credit that you earn the greatest reward, your own trust. Every refusal is an affirmation of who he is and who he's becoming. Every act of restraint is a signal to the soul. I am in charge here. I am not ruled by my impulses. I am not a slave to desire. I am the master of my domain. He does not brag about it. He does not need validation. The act itself is the reward. It is enough to know you remained loyal to your values. And every time he does this, he becomes freer, not only from temptation, but from the illusion that pleasure without purpose leads to happiness. True joy, the Stoic knows, is not a product of indulgence, but of alignment, of living in harmony with one's values, one's mission, and one's inner truth. And in that harmony, he discovers something far more powerful than pleasure. He finds meaning. He finds peace that cannot be shaken and a power that cannot be purchased. In that silence where the world's noise has been denied, the Stoic walks forward, not perfectly, but powerfully. When a temptation arises, pause and breathe deeply. Create space between the impulse and the action. Allow yourself a moment of silence before reacting. Ask yourself with complete honesty, who am I becoming if I say yes to this? What does this decision shape in me? Who does it serve, my highest self or my habits? Write it down, even if it feels uncomfortable. Let the words reveal your intentions. Then go further. Visualize the future version of yourself, the one who consistently chooses strength, alignment, and character. What would that version of you say in this moment? What would they thank you for? Let that clarity, that vision of your disciplined self, speak louder than the craving. Let the long-term peace of staying true outweigh the short-term pleasure of giving in. Saying no in this moment is not weakness. It is wisdom in action, the first brick in the foundation of the person you are building. Chapter 3. Say no to people-pleasing. People-pleasing is not kindness. It is self-abandonment in disguise. It wears the mask of generosity, but operates from fear. Fear of being disliked, of being left out, of being misunderstood. When you constantly seek approval, you lose authority over your life. You place your self-worth into the hands of others, hoping they will value what you have refused to claim yourself. Epictetus warned, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, be willing to stand alone for what is right, even if it means losing superficial harmony. Saying no to others doesn't mean you love them less. It means you love truth more. It means you are willing to live with integrity rather than live in quiet contradiction. It means you are willing to be misunderstood for the sake of self-respect. The Stoic is not cold, but he is clear. He does not speak to be liked. He speaks to be aligned. His compass is virtue, not validation. He knows that clarity will offend those who expect compliance, and he accepts that consequence with grace. He knows that a clear no often causes more tension in the short term, but far less resentment in the long term. People-pleasing is the art of silent suffering. It's the smile you wear when you want to scream, the favor you agree to out of fear, the commitment you accept out of guilt. It's saying yes when your whole being is screaming no. It's the erosion of boundaries disguised as generosity. But the Stoic knows that every yes to others must be weighed against the cost to the self. He understands that saying yes when you mean no creates internal friction, disharmony between your values and your actions. He doesn't serve from depletion, he serves from strength. He helps where it aligns with justice and wisdom, not where it props up dysfunction. He draws a clear line between kindness and compliance. You were not created to live someone else's life. You were not designed to carry everyone's burdens, to be the solution to every problem or the answer to every request. You are not a vessel for other people's expectations. The Stoic honors service, but not servitude. He recognizes the beauty of helping, but he also sees the danger of losing himself in the process. He serves when it is right, not when it is expected, not when it's demanded. He knows that saying yes to everything is not a sign of a generous heart. It is often the mark of an unguarded one. He understands that boundaries are not rejection, they are self-respect in practice. He says no, not out of selfishness, but out of strength, because he knows that in protecting his energy, he protects his ability to serve when it truly matters. And when he gives, it is from fullness, not obligation, from alignment, not anxiety. That is the difference between sacrifice and slavery, and the Stoic knows it well. When asked for something, respond with this phrase, "Let me think about that." This simple sentence buys you space to breathe, space to reflect, and space to make a decision that honors your values. In a world that moves quickly, where immediate replies are expected and pressure is applied subtly, taking a pause becomes a radical act of self-respect. It shifts the dynamic from reaction to reflection. In that pause, ask yourself a series of questions, not just one. If I say yes, what am I saying no to in my own life? What energy will this require from me? Will this move me closer to or further from the person I'm trying to become? What will this cost in terms of time, focus, peace, or purpose? Is this a genuine obligation or an inherited expectation? By slowing down the decision, you give yourself the chance to align it with your deeper commitments. Saying, "Let me think about that," is not stalling. It's standing guard at the gates of your energy. And by doing so, you strengthen your ability to say a clear, confident yes when it's right, and an unwavering no when it's not. Chapter 4. Say no to fear. Fear is not always loud. Often it whispers in hesitation. It disguises itself as logic, pretending to protect you when it's really preventing you from living fully. It tells you to wait, to shrink, to play small. It rationalizes delay and sugarcoats avoidance. It makes comfort sound like wisdom and risk sound like recklessness. But the Stoic knows that fear, left unchallenged, becomes the author of your life. It writes your story in missed opportunities and silenced potential. It replaces your vision with limitation, your courage with compromise. Marcus Aurelius declared, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." And this truth cuts deeper with each passing day we let fear make our decisions. Because a life governed by fear is a life half-lived, safe, perhaps, but empty. To say no to fear is to say yes to action, yes to courage, yes to showing up, even when the outcome is uncertain. Yes to the unknown path, the difficult path, the growth path. Yes to becoming more than your doubts and stronger than your hesitation. For the Stoic, living fully isn't about eliminating fear. It's about refusing to obey it. It's about walking into the fire instead of waiting for the smoke to clear. Fear is a liar. It promises safety and delivers regret. It sells you comfort while robbing you of fulfillment. It whispers that staying still is wise, when in fact it's stagnation wearing a mask. It tells you to avoid discomfort, but discomfort is often the gateway to purpose. The Stoic doesn't silence fear by shouting. It silences it by stepping forward, by choosing movement over paralysis, by choosing truth over comfort, by making the difficult phone call, by taking the first step, by doing the thing the fearful voice said couldn't be done. He doesn't wait for the fear to leave. He moves through it and finds it weaker than it appeared. This doesn't mean the Stoic is fearless. It means he refuses to be ruled by fear. He acknowledges its presence without giving it power. He understands that fear can alert, but it should never decide. He sees fear not as a barrier, but as a beacon. He sees fear as a compass, pointing to the very thing he must do, the very mountain he must climb, the very conversation he must have, the very risk that leads to real growth. Because beyond the fear is the life he's meant to live, and the Stoic walks toward it, not away. He walks with trembling hands but steady heart, knowing that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the conquest of it. Write down 3 fears that are keeping you small. Name them with precision. Don't soften them, face them. Acknowledge the way they limit your actions, your goals, your self-expression. Then, for each fear, write the smallest possible action step you can take against it. Not the boldest, not the biggest, but the most immediate. Something that can be done within the next few minutes or hours, not days. Something that breaks inertia and replaces anxiety with momentum. Once written, choose one of these actions and commit to it. Not tomorrow, today. The Stoic does not wait for courage to feel convenient. He acts despite the discomfort, because that is where transformation lives. Let this action be your rebellion against stagnation. After you do it, reflect. What did you learn? Was the fear as powerful as it claimed to be? What did you gain by acting instead of shrinking? Then, go to the second action, and the third. You are teaching your nervous system that fear is not your master, it is your messenger. Begin here, begin now. Begin where fear ends and your true power begins. Chapter 5. Say no to self-sabotage. The greatest enemy of your growth is not the world, it is your own repeated betrayals, your procrastination, your excuses, your inconsistency. The inner dialogue that says, "I'll start tomorrow," or "It's not the right time." These aren't just minor lapses, they are fractures in the architecture of your character. The Stoics believed in radical self-responsibility. You have power over your mind, said Marcus, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It is not what happens around you that shapes your destiny. It is how you meet those events, how you meet yourself, that forms your fate. When you abandon your discipline, you abandon your destiny. Self-sabotage is subtle. It wears the mask of caution. It disguises itself as waiting for the right time, as being realistic, as protecting your peace. It speaks with the tone of reason, but operates with the intent of fear. It convinces you that standing still is safer than moving forward. But the Stoic does not confuse comfort with care. He does not mistake avoidance for wisdom. He knows when he's hiding. He knows when he is letting fear pretend to be logic. He catches himself in the act, not to punish, but to awaken. The Stoic knows that you cannot outrun your responsibilities and expect to reach your potential. You cannot postpone effort and expect progress. Each delay is a decision to remain the same. To say no to self-sabotage is to say yes to discipline, yes to integrity, yes to the path, even when it's steep. It is to become your own commander, not your own captor. It is to stop negotiating with your lower impulses and start living in alignment with your higher standards. It is choosing to keep your word to yourself when no one is watching. It is realizing that the pain of effort is less than the pain of regret. Each time you show up when you don't feel like it, you break the grip of self-sabotage and build the muscle of inner authority. Each action becomes a small act of revolution against the part of you that wants to settle, to delay, to excuse. The Stoic observes his thoughts without believing all of them. He understands that the mind can be a deceptive narrator, and not every internal message deserves a response. He watches his habits with precision, not judgment, and chooses which to keep. He does not allow familiarity to justify repetition. Only what strengthens the soul stays. He examines what he repeats, what he tolerates, and what he avoids. He asks whether these patterns serve his soul or sabotage it. He does not allow emotion to dictate execution. He recognizes that emotion is a temporary wave, and to build a life around it is to build a house on the sand. So he listens, but he is not led. He acknowledges how he feels, but he follows what he values. He does not wait for motivation. He becomes it. He initiates rather than reacts. He knows that motivation is a side effect of momentum, not a prerequisite for beginning. He creates his energy through motion, not mood. He knows that feelings are fleeting, but commitments are eternal. That temporary doubt cannot override enduring discipline. That showing up on the hard days is more meaningful than performing on the easy ones. He shows up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because he knows that in those moments, greatness is forged, not in the easy times, but in the disciplined ones, the days when resistance is strongest, the moments when everything in him wants to quit. That is when he sharpens his edge, the times when no one is watching, the times when the reward is invisible, the moments when the only witness is your own conscience. Those are the proving grounds of virtue. That is where the true Stoic rises, quietly, steadily, without applause, but with power. Not performative power, but anchored power. Not the strength others can see, but the strength that cannot be shaken, because it was built in silence, tested in discomfort, and born of relentless follow-through. At the end of each day, write down 3 moments you honored your discipline and 1 moment you didn't. Be specific. Detail what choice you made, how it reflected your values, and what it cost or rewarded you. Don't just list them, understand them. Each action carries a lesson. Each moment of alignment is proof of your growth, and each moment of misalignment is not failure, but feedback, a mirror showing you where to strengthen your guard. Next, reflect, not with shame, but with strategy. Ask, what made discipline easier today? What caused me to stumble? What habits supported me, and what impulses undermined me? By reviewing your behavior with curiosity rather than condemnation, you sharpen your self-awareness and reinforce the muscle of self-mastery. Then, set one intention for tomorrow, one commitment to make that will strengthen the version of yourself you are becoming. Discipline is not an event. It is a pattern, a direction, a daily vote for the person you choose to be. Tomorrow is not just another day. It is another chance to say no to the weaker version of yourself and yes to the one who leads with strength. Chapter 6. Say no to flattery. There is a kind of praise that lifts you and a kind that lures you. The Stoics were not seduced by applause, they were anchored in principle. They knew that flattery, while sweet to the ear, is dangerous to the soul. It inflates the ego and obscures the truth. Flattery is the art of distortion. It whispers half-truths wrapped in admiration, and in doing so, it attempts to tame you with your own image. Epictetus warned, "If someone flatters you, be on your guard." Not just because of their motives, but because of what it awakens within you. The desire to be seen above the desire to be true. To say no to flattery is to say yes to humility, to remain grounded even when praised, to remember that applause can be addictive, that the desire to be celebrated can become louder than the call to be honest. The Stoic is not opposed to being acknowledged, but he does not feed on it. He sees praise as data, not definition, as wind, not root. He does not build his identity on the opinions of others, because for the one who builds on compliments crumbles at criticism, and the one who crumbles cannot carry responsibility. Flattery is not feedback, it is manipulation in disguise. It tells you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. It exaggerates your strengths and erases your weaknesses. And if you are not careful, you begin to perform for it. You start making choices not based on principle, but on popularity. You compromise your principles to preserve approval. You begin to chase affirmation rather than pursue virtue. What once guided you internally now becomes determined by external validation. The applause that lifted you becomes the chain that binds you. The Stoic returns always to his inner compass. He does not let his character be edited by applause, no matter how thunderous or tempting it may be. He does not outsource his self-worth to strangers, critics, or even admirers. His sense of value is forged internally, anchored in reason and virtue, not inflated by fleeting praise. He understands that real growth often requires silence, solitude, and self-correction, not celebration. Real transformation happens in the absence of an audience, in the small, disciplined acts that no one sees. His aim is not to be impressive, but to be whole, not to perform a version of himself for approval, but to live in deep alignment with who he truly is, to be congruent, to be honest in private and unshakable in public. He does not ask, "Did they like me?" He asks, "Was I honest? Was I just? Was I brave?" Because those questions lead to virtue. The others lead to vanity, to fragmentation, to a life constantly shaped by external applause. To say no to flattery is to remind yourself that your worth does not rise or fall with the praise of others. That praise is pleasant, but not proof. That your identity is not sculpted by compliments, but by conviction. That the loudest approval can be the most misleading. That applause is a wind, and the Stoic is a mountain, unmoved, unchanged, rooted not in praise, but in purpose, grounded in values that hold firm in both silence and celebration. The Stoic is not swayed by the storm of opinion. He knows who he is, even when no one is clapping, and that stillness, that steadiness, that is where his true power lives. When praised, pause. Accept it graciously, but ask yourself, what part of this is true? What part of this could blind me? Use compliments as a mirror, not a mask. Chapter 7. Say no to excess. The world calls more a virtue. The Stoic calls it a vice. Not because abundance is wrong, but because attachment to abundance enslaves. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, Seneca wrote, but in having few wants. Abundance can be a blessing when approached with wisdom, but when chased without restraint, it becomes a burden. It tempts the soul to believe that fulfillment lives in accumulation, that peace lies in plenty. But the Stoic knows better. He understands that desire unexamined is a chain, and the more you satisfy it, the tighter it binds. To say no to excess is not to reject all comfort. It is to reject dependency. It is to remain free in a world that constantly seduces with more. The Stoic owns things, but is not owned by them. He enjoys success, but does not need it to feel whole. He honors beauty, but is not controlled by it. He appreciates quality, but is unmoved by luxury. His freedom comes not from what he acquires, but from what he can walk away from. He sees possessions not as proof of identity, but as tools to serve purpose. If they no longer serve, he releases them without sorrow. Excess numbs clarity. The more you have, the more you protect. The more you indulge, the less you appreciate. The Stoic strips down his needs, not to live poorly, but to live purely. He declutters not just his environment, but his expectations. He cuts the noise so he can hear what truly matters, to travel light, to move swiftly, to be free. He understands that simplicity sharpens focus, that in the absence of distraction, truth is easier to find. That joy does not increase with more, but with meaning. He is not against prosperity. He is against being possessed by prosperity. He questions not just how much he has, but what it costs him to keep. Does it take his peace, his time, his sleep, his soul? He does not cling to what he has out of fear. He lets go out of wisdom. He knows that security built on surplus is fragile, but security built on sufficiency is enduring. He knows that needing less is the ultimate wealth. To say no to excess is to say yes to sufficiency. It is to declare that enough is a decision, not a number. To reject the illusion that fulfillment is hidden in the next possession, the next promotion, the next layer of luxury. To choose the power of simplicity over the pressure of accumulation. The Stoic sees the weight behind every acquisition, not just the physical cost, but the emotional toll, the attention it demands, the fear of loss it brings. Every added item must be managed, maintained, and protected, so he cuts what distracts and keeps what serves. It is not minimalism, it is mental sovereignty. It is not about having less for the sake of less. It is about removing everything that does not serve your spirit, your purpose, your clarity. It is a radical clarity of what matters, a refusal to be buried by the unnecessary, a life not cluttered with obligation, but cleared for intention. When the mind is not preoccupied with maintaining appearances or managing excess, it can focus fully, powerfully, on what matters most. It is choosing stillness over stimulation, silence over noise, essence over excess. It is a stripping down, not to suffer, but to sharpen, not to deprive, but to define, to remove the distractions until only your essence remains, to see what remains when all the unnecessary is removed, because what remains is what is real. The core of who you are is not dependent on decoration or display. It is discovered through deliberate reduction. It is clarity over clutter, strength over status, depth over decoration, not because those things are bad, but because they are often a barrier to what is best. The Stoic does not aim to impress. He aims to embody. He is not in pursuit of aesthetic perfection, but inner alignment. He wants to live a life that feels right, not just looks right. He seeks to be known by his discipline, not his decoration. And that clarity opens the door to joy. Not the joy of novelty, but the joy of presence, the joy of alignment, the joy of lightness, the joy of inner steadiness, the joy of knowing that what you have is enough, and that who you are without it is still whole. Wholeness that is untouchable because it is not borrowed from the world. It is built within, a foundation that no fire, failure, or flattery can shake. Choose one indulgence to subtract this week, something you lean on daily for comfort, convenience, or distraction. It doesn't need to be extreme. It can be your morning scroll through social media, the extra sugar in your coffee, the impulsive online shopping, or even that one show you binge to escape. Remove it, not to punish yourself, but to observe yourself. Observe your reaction. What thoughts rise up when you can't reach for it? What emotions bubble to the surface? Do you feel agitated, restless, irritable? Do you find yourself searching for a substitute or rationalizing its return? That's not a flaw, it's a map. It reveals your cravings, your coping mechanisms, your hidden dependencies. Are you uneasy without it? Good. That is where growth begins. That's where awareness sharpens. That's where power is reclaimed. In discomfort, your relationship with that indulgence becomes visible, and from visibility comes the opportunity for mastery. The Stoic knows, what you can willingly go without, you are no longer enslaved by. Let this small act of subtraction open the doorway to strength. Chapter 8. Say no to comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy and the enemy of authenticity. It robs you quietly, whispering doubts that sound like truth. It sneaks in when you're vulnerable, turning your gaze outward when you most need to look inward. The Stoic knows that envy is a prison built by perception, a trap of your own design. He understands that when you measure your worth against another's timeline or talents, you surrender your power. He does not measure himself by what others have, but by how aligned he is with virtue. He does not look sideways, he looks inward, because it is not their life he must live, it is his. To say no to comparison is to say yes to peace, to say yes to contentment, to say yes to the full presence of your path. It is to acknowledge that the race is not between you and the world. It's between who you were and who you are becoming. The Stoic understands that every person's journey is unique, shaped by forces both visible and invisible, their opportunities, their trials, their timing. What belongs to others was never meant to define you, and when you let go of that illusion, you make room for genuine gratitude. Comparison narrows your vision. It steals your gratitude. It magnifies your inadequacies while minimizing your strengths. It tempts you to measure your progress in someone else's metrics. It turns your potential into pressure, your joy into jealousy. But the Stoic resists this trap. He knows that nothing beautiful blooms when it is obsessed with someone else's garden. He does not compete, he cultivates. He doesn't mirror others. He tends his own soil, waters his own roots, and trusts the timing of his own season. He asks, "Am I better than I was yesterday?" Not, "Am I better than him?" He does not run a race with spectators in mind. He runs it with sincerity. He runs his own race, on his own lane, at his own pace. And he finds peace, not in being first, but in being faithful. Faithful to his values, faithful to his direction, faithful to the quiet voice inside that reminds him who he is and what he is here to do. That is the Stoic's true victory, not surpassing others, but staying true to himself. When comparison arises, counter it with this question: what in my life right now is quietly going well? Take a moment to reflect deeply. Think not only of the obvious blessings, but of the simple consistencies, the breath in your lungs, the habits you've kept, the relationships that nourish you, the progress that may not yet be visible but is unfolding. Look at the areas of your life that don't scream for attention but offer steady support. Let your attention linger there. Where has peace quietly taken root? Where are you growing without applause? What in your life doesn't need validation to be meaningful? These are the things comparison blinds you to. Let gratitude dissolve envy, not just intellectually, but emotionally. Let it slow your pulse, soften your gaze, and bring you back to your lane. Because when you count what's quietly going well, you begin to see that your life is not lacking, it's layered with strength you've overlooked. Chapter 9. Say no to resentment. To carry resentment is to drink poison and expect another to suffer. It is to light yourself on fire, hoping the smoke will sting someone else's eyes. It is to replay the wound so often that it begins to feel like your identity. The Stoic refuses to carry the weight of bitterness, not because he denies the pain, but because he refuses to be defined by it. Pain may visit him, but it is not his home. He knows that resentment only slows him down, clouds his judgment, and chains his mind to past injury. He forgives, not because others deserve it, but because he does, because his peace matters more than his pride, because his future depends on it, because he refuses to give someone who hurt him the power to keep hurting him through memory. Saying no to resentment is saying yes to freedom. It is severing the invisible chains of emotional slavery. It is declaring with bold clarity that your past will not be your prison, that your healing matters more than your hatred. The Stoic understands that people will wrong you, they will lie, they will leave, they will betray, they will disappoint. They may even do it without remorse. But to dwell on it is to be twice wounded, first by them, then by yourself. Every replay of the offense reopens the wound. Every bitter thought drains your strength. The Stoic chooses to stop feeding the fire. He chooses to stop being a character in someone else's story and start writing his own. Resentment keeps old pain alive. It ties your identity to your injury. It tells you that you are only what was done to you, not what you do next. It blurs your vision, narrows your potential, and poisons your inner peace. But the Stoic feels the pain, then faces it. He does not bury it. He does not pretend it didn't matter. But he does not let it metastasize into bitterness. He acknowledges the hurt, names it, understands it, learns the lesson, and then releases the anchor. Because growth requires movement, and no one moves forward while dragging the past behind them. He refuses to become a museum of his suffering. He would rather become a temple of his strength. Forgiveness is not a weakness. It is strength. It is power. It is the fierce, quiet courage to cut the cord, to rewrite the narrative, to be more than what broke you. It is the refusal to let the past dictate the present. It is looking injustice in the face and saying, "You will not make me small." The Stoic does not forget, but he does not rehearse. He does not carry the betrayal like a trophy or recite it like a mantra. He does not center his life around what went wrong. He builds it around what can go right. He uses betrayal as a teacher, not a story he lives in forever. He understands that the ultimate form of strength is not retaliation, but release. That the greatest act of rebellion against cruelty is healing. That the one who lets go walks lighter, lives freer, and walks straighter on the path to virtue. And that in letting go, he reclaims what no enemy can touch: his peace, his power, and his path forward. That is the Stoic's revenge, not in returning the pain, but in becoming untouchable by it. Write a letter to the one who hurt you. Don't send it. Say everything. Say what you couldn't say then. Speak from the truth you now carry. Let your words carry the grief, the confusion, the rage, the betrayal, whatever still lingers, trapped in silence. Write it all down without censorship. Let the page hold what your heart no longer needs to carry. Don't write to punish, but to purge. This is not for them. It's for you. Let every sentence be an exhale. Let every line release what has taken up space in your soul. Tell the truth, not the version you sugarcoated, not the version you minimized, but the real, raw, unfiltered truth. Express the questions that were never answered. Name the moments that cracked something in you. Claim the voice that may have gone quiet in the aftermath. Then burn it. Watch the flames consume what you have finally spoken. Feel the weight lift as the ashes fall. Let it be your declaration. This no longer owns me. Let the fire purify what the words exposed, not because it erases what happened, but because it ends its power over you. Release what you've outgrown. Release the pain, the identity, the narrative that has kept you chained to an old version of yourself. Walk forward, not with vengeance, but with liberation. The past will always be part of your story, but it does not get to write your next chapter. That honor belongs to who you are becoming. Chapter 10. Say no to quitting. There will come a time when you want to quit, to give up, to let go. When your energy feels drained and your spirit feels bruised, the path will feel steep, the reward will feel far, the pressure will feel unbearable. Your mind will flood with doubt. Your heart will ache with discouragement. Your body will beg for rest. But the Stoic says no, not to the pain, but to the exit. Not because he is immune to suffering, but because he is committed to purpose. He knows that endurance is not a virtue born of ease. It is forged in fire, sculpted in trials, tempered in silence. It does not come from moments of comfort, but from encounters with hardship that demand everything. If you are distressed by anything external, wrote Marcus Aurelius, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke it at any moment. To the Stoic, suffering is not the end. It is the furnace through which strength is formed. To say no to quitting is to say yes to resilience, to perseverance, to the quiet decision that today, again, you will not fold, that today, again, you will rise, not with a roar, but with resolve, with a breath, with a step, and then another. It is not about finishing with speed. It is about continuing with courage. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Can I do this forever?" He asks, "Can I take one more step today?" The Stoic is not superhuman. He is simply committed. He feels what you feel, but he does not let it stop him. He weathers storms without losing direction. He rests, but he does not retreat. He adapts, but he does not abandon. He bends, but he does not break. When he is wounded, he heals. When he is tired, he pauses. But he does not quit, because quitting betrays what he knows to be true, that every struggle carries something sacred. To endure is not to suffer in silence. It is to suffer with purpose, with direction, with dignity. It is the quiet strength to continue when the crowd is gone and no one is watching. It is to rise above discouragement and continue forward, not because it is easy, but because it is right. It is to transform pain into perseverance, to meet hardship with defiance, to look at what breaks others and say, "This will build me," to walk with the fire, not away from it. The Stoic draws strength not from the outcome, but from his commitment to the process, from the act of staying, showing up, and pressing forward when everything tempts him to yield. He does not let his effort be controlled by his emotions. He stays in motion when his feelings beg him to stop, because he is not led by comfort. He is led by conviction. He knows that every day he continues is a day he rewrites the story. That grit compounds. That invisible, unglamorous consistency stacks strength brick by brick. That character is built not in the summit, but in the slog. That one more hour of effort, one more moment of courage, one more refusal to give up, that's where growth hides. That's where resolve is refined. That is where power lives. That is how ordinary men become immovable, because they choose to be immovable in the small moments, again and again. To endure is to honor your mission above your mood, to choose the standard over the shortcut, to stay rooted when the storm shakes you, to fight for the future even when the present feels heavy, to understand that fatigue is not failure, that doubt is not a stop sign, that suffering does not mean you are broken, it means you are alive and in the arena. In the arena, everything is stripped away, your image, your comforts, your excuses. What remains is who you really are, and that is where the Stoic belongs, in the arena, in the fire, in the test, where his discipline is revealed and his resolve is proven, because that is where the worthy fight is, and the Stoic never walks away from a worthy fight, because the fight is where the fire is, and the fire is where the real self is forged. When you feel like quitting, ask, what would the version of me I respect most do right now? Picture that version clearly, how they stand, how they respond under pressure, how they hold the line when it's hardest. See their eyes steady with purpose, their body tired but upright, their spirit bruised but unbroken. Then act like them, just for today. Rise like them, decide like them, speak and move and fight like them, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are choosing to become. And then, tomorrow, when fatigue creeps back in and the doubts return, do it again. Each day is a vote for the self you're building. Cast it with conviction. To say no is not to push life away. It is to protect what matters most. It is not rejection. It is selection. It is how you narrow the path to widen your peace. The Stoic knows that freedom is not found in saying yes to everything, but in having the strength to say no to what weakens you. Say no to distraction, and you reclaim your attention. Say no to temptation, and you reclaim your strength. Say no to people-pleasing, and you reclaim your voice. Say no to fear, and you reclaim your courage. Say no to self-sabotage, and you reclaim your future. Every no, when rooted in virtue, becomes a sacred yes to something deeper, stronger, freer. The Stoic life is not a life of constant denial. It is a life of conscious devotion, a life lived not at the mercy of the world, but in mastery of yourself. And that is the power of just saying no.